Before we get started, just a quick note. All the images in this video were made using AI. I only used the first results that came out since the free version takes quite a while, and there were a lot of images to make, so if something looks a bit off here and there, that's why. I didn't go back to fix anything. Still, the story and meaning are what matter most, so I hope you enjoy it anyway. When you think of villains in Harry Potter, your mind goes straight to Voldemort. The snake-faced tyrant, the killer of parents, the one who split his soul to cheat death. He's the obvious answer, the name that terrified a generation of wizards into silence. But what if I told you the real villain of the story isn't Voldemort at all? What if the true darkness in this world doesn't come from spells or Horcruxes, but from the quiet, accepted flaws of the very system that created him? Let's start with a simple truth. Voldemort is the symptom, not the disease. He's the visible monster, but not the root cause. The real villain is the world that allowed him to exist, the one that looked away when cruelty was convenient, that taught blood purity before friendship, and that protected power over justice. Hogwarts may have taught magic, but the wizarding world never learned empathy. And in that failure, Voldemort was born. Think about Tom Riddle's beginnings. He wasn't raised in a dark castle or trained by evil mentors. He was a scared, brilliant child growing up in an orphanage, alone, unwanted, and unloved. The magical world knew about him. Dumbledore knew about him. Yet after that first fateful meeting, Tom was simply left there. He was told he was special, gifted, different, but never guided, never loved. The wizarding world saw his potential but not his pain, and when you give power to a boy who's never known love, what else could he become but a monster? The truth is, every major tragedy in this story traces back to institutional neglect. The Ministry of Magic, bloated with corruption and self-interest, refused to act until it was too late. The Daily Prophet twisted truth into propaganda. Even Hogwarts, the so-called beacon of learning, was divided by houses that encouraged rivalry more than unity. We'll sort you based on your personality, they said, but what they really meant was, we'll teach you to see difference before humanity. Voldemort didn't invent evil, he merely magnified what was already there. The obsession with blood purity didn't start with him. The prejudice against house elves, werewolves, muggle-borns, that was already in the bones of this world. The system was sick long before he ever raised a wand. Let's not forget how easily the wizarding society accepted his rise, not out of fear, but out of belief. Many supported him willingly. Influential families, even ministry officials, agreed with his ideals, but stayed silent to protect their reputations. That silence was the breeding ground of genocide. Evil rarely starts with a curse. It starts with a whisper, a shrug, a decision to look away. Even after Voldemort's defeat, nothing really changed. The same ministry that ignored his rise went right back to business as usual. No reparations, no real reform, just the illusion of peace. The world wanted a hero, not accountability, and so they praised Dumbledore, they worshipped Harry, and they buried the truth. And speaking of Dumbledore, was he truly the saint the books made him out to be, or was he another architect of the same flawed system? Dumbledore knew about Tom Riddle's darkness long before anyone else. He knew about the prophecy, about the danger Harry would face, and still, he let a child carry the burden of saving the world. Dumbledore played the long game, always watching, always planning, but never fully trusting anyone with the truth. He saw the chessboard, he saw every piece, and sometimes he was willing to sacrifice them. In that sense, Dumbledore and Voldemort are two sides of the same coin. Both believed they were acting for the greater good. Both thought they alone could decide the fate of others. The only difference is one sought power through domination and the other through control. And if we're honest, control wrapped in kindness can be just as dangerous as open cruelty. But maybe that's the point Rowling was trying to make, that evil isn't always a dark lord with a wand. Sometimes it's bureaucracy or manipulation or apathy. Sometimes it's good people doing nothing because they think someone else will. The Death Eaters were loud, but the Ministry's silence was louder. Look at characters like Umbridge. She wore pink, smiled sweetly, and followed every rule, yet she inflicted more psychological torture than many Death Eaters. She didn't kill for ideology, she punished for obedience. That's what makes her terrifying. She represents the evil of the system itself. Lawful, orderly, and proudly blind. Voldemort had to hide in shadows. Umbridge thrived in daylight. Even Harry himself saw this hypocrisy. He learned that truth doesn't always matter if it threatens comfort. When he tried to warn the Ministry about Voldemort's return, they called him a liar. They printed propaganda to discredit him. It's easier to silence truth than confront it, and that's what makes the world truly dark. Not magic, not curses, but the human desire to stay comfortable at any cost. So no, the real villain isn't Voldemort. He's just the mask. The real villain is the world that created him, denied him, and later used his name to feel righteous. Every corrupt official, every silent bystander, every law that put power before compassion, that's where the darkness lives. Voldemort may have been defeated, but the system that birthed him never truly died. And if you think about it, that's what makes the ending bittersweet. The story ends with peace, but not necessarily progress. The same people hold power, the same structures remain, and the same divisions still quietly exist. Slytherin isn't reformed. House elves still serve. Goblins are still mistrusted. It's not a new world. It's just a world catching its breath. But perhaps that's what makes Harry Potter so human. It reminds us that evil doesn't vanish with a single victory. It mutates, adapts, hides behind rules and respectability. The battle against Voldemort was just the surface. The real war is the one against indifference. Maybe that's the legacy Harry leaves behind. Not that he destroyed evil, but that he recognized it for what it was. He learned that courage isn't about defeating monsters. It's about facing the quiet corruption that hides in plain sight. And maybe, just maybe, the next generation of witches and wizards will learn what their elders could not. That the true fight isn't for power, but for empathy. So when someone asks, who's the real villain of Harry Potter, that don't just think of Voldemort. Think of every time the world looked away. Think of every voice that stayed silent. Because in the end, evil doesn't need to win. That it only needs people to stop caring. If you enjoyed this video, please take a second to like, share, and comment. It really helps me keep making more stories like this. Thanks for watching, and for keeping the magic alive. Peace out.